Hi there, this week we're going to be talking about why computers freeze when they get hot. My name is Steve, this is TQA Weekly, and you can learn how computers and other electronics respect their thermal limits. Computers are complex electronic devices that require a very specific adherence to a set thermal range. If the computer is too cold, it may not turn on. Since most of you that watch my episodes don't use liquid cooling from liquid nitrogen or other systems, I will completely ignore that part. For that, you just need to make sure your computer's warmer. For the other part, if a computer is getting hot or is too hot, it may slow down or turn off. That's what we're going to be talking about today. What is typically the normal end user's issues? Heat is generated just as a process of how electronics work. The reason is that your processors, graphics cards, power supplies, SSDs, and other electronics are immensely inefficient. Because of this, all that extra electricity that's in their electronics just gets converted to heat. And it's this heat that you want to remove from your computer and your electronics. And we do that using heat sinks, fans, and periodically even liquid cooling, which is just heat sink, fan, water pump, and of course, water. So, given all that, technically speaking, we should be able to keep a computer relatively cool, or at least cool enough to use it properly. There is one common issue that I have seen. It's that if somebody else builds your computer or you build it, you forgetting to remove plastic from certain pieces might insulate the processor as opposed to allowing it to actually conduct heat. So if your computer's always been hot, take apart the power supply, the processor and the fan to check underneath the heatsink. If the sticker's still there, remove the sticker, reapply thermal paste, put it back together, and you probably solved your problem. For everybody else, there are a few parts that need to function correctly for you to avoid this issue. First and foremost, before we ever approach thermal throttling, your fan curve. Apple is notorious for trying to keep their computers quiet for as long as possible. Don't. If you need performance, use an aggressive fan curve, because the faster the fans are turning, the louder they are, yes, but the colder your computer is going to be. And if they are more aggressive at the beginning, your computer will stay cooler longer, avoiding thermal throttling for longer or even altogether. So a more aggressive fan curve is probably better for you. And if you don't want fans to be that loud, my only suggestion for you if you want to avoid thermal throttling is to get better fans or quieter fans to begin with. The more air they move, the better. Also, make sure that your computer is in a positive pressure mode, meaning that you have more air coming in than out, just slightly. You don't want a vacuum in your computer. If your computer has even the slightest of vacuum, it might not be able to remove all the heat from the system, so you want just a little bit of air, and it will also keep your computer actually happy because it will be cleaner. You want your heat sinks to be clean, you want your fans to be clean, you want any radiators to be completely clean. The cleaner your computer system is, all the intakes, all of the screens and everything, the more air comes in, the more air comes out, the cooler your system's going to be. And if you do all of that, you shouldn't be thermal throttling. But if you just happen to thermal throttle anyway, what is happening is it's basically reducing the voltage on your electronics, slowing them down so that you are not going to break them. At this point, this is what feels like the computer is lagging or freezing. It's doing that to protect your computer, because what can happen if this doesn't help? A computer that is overheating and approaches the thermal limit will just turn off. Computers have thermal probes, and they are constantly checking the temperature of the system. So once it's at the point where it's trying to thermal throttle, you are getting up there. And once the computer sees that it's now at the top maximum temperature that is safe, it turns off to avoid damage to the computer. At this point, I would just check why the computer is unable to remove all of the specific heat from the system. It might be the ambient temperature that's too high, it might be your fans are dirty, your heat sinks, your intakes, or any of that. If anything is dirty, clean them out. Replace the thermal paste. Make sure there's nothing that is insulating parts from one or another, like those plastic seals from manufacturers, and then put it back together. If that still doesn't help, you might have to start replacing some of the fans or the water cooling so that the computer can actually function properly. Because you need a computer that can keep itself cool for it to operate in an optimum fashion. A computer that is thermal throttling is a computer that is not cool enough. And it is possible that your fans and heat sinks are just not designed for the heat load that they are getting. So if it's that the case, then get something that is actually designed to remove the heat from the system for which you are using. So you definitely need to use the correct cooling items for your computer. So if your computer can only remove half the heat generated, it will definitely overheat quicker than it would have if you had the proper heat sink and fan for your processor, because most graphics cards already come with the correct parts to begin with. So usually we're talking about the processor in this case, but everything in your computer still needs to be clean so that it generates less and less heat and operates more efficiently. The more efficient the cooling, the more efficient the computer, the cooler it's going to be. And that will just save you a lot of headaches to avoid everything else. So, like this episode if you like it, dislike it if you didn't, share with those you think will benefit from this, and do not forget to subscribe. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions for topics, email me at ask@tqaweekly.com or go to my website, tqaweekly.com, where you can see the show notes on this episode, past others, find other ways of subscribing, and of course use the contact form and email me directly. And if you want to see me play video games, head over to twitch.tv/zaxis1981, where I play video games every single week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, where right now I am playing Elite Sniper 5. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.